All right, let's go ahead and get rolling here. It looks like the list is kind of stabilized here in terms of people joining. Yeah, and welcome to the webinar here. So today we're going to talk about leveraging artificial intelligence to improve damage prevention and safety. And of course, we are Earth Solutions, and I'll do a quick introduction of myself. I am Matthew Abbott. I'm the Chief Product Officer here at Earth Solutions. My main role and responsibilities are really to set the vision and strategy for our products, and really, the best part of what I get to do is work with all of you as well to figure out what are the biggest changes that have the most impact and the most value to you. I'll pass over to Kyle for an introduction now. So Kyle, go ahead and introduce yourself here as well.
Thanks, Matt. My name is Kyle Murphy. I'm the Director of Science and Architecture here at Earth Solutions, and I lead up the artificial intelligence and machine learning side of things when it comes to risk prediction and mitigation.
Great. Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and get started here. And so whenever we talk about risk, one of the first things that we really want to do, especially during this webinar, is really talk about what you all have asked, what our clients have actually asked here. So I'm going to go to my next slide here. And when you think about this, we've heard about 5 things that clients have asked over the years in terms of risk. So number one is asking for a configurable risk score. If I have something special, I want to be able to go in and configure it so that way it changes the risk. And it's something that maybe AI can't pick up because it's so new. So that's one request we've heard from clients. Another one, which is one of the most important ones, are that you guys have asked, what damages me? What are the things that actually cause damage to you and to your facilities? And that's another thing that we get asked constantly. The next one, and again, these are all very important, but this is really the next iteration. Kyle's going to go a lot into this around Insights AI. But not only is it the things that you want configurable to produce a risk score and the things that damages you, but really predicting, really having a model that predicts what those damages are, and even taking that further where it can predict also the impact. So not only is there potential damage that's going to happen, but if there is, then what is the actual impact of that particular damage as well? Is it a costly impact or not very costly? So that's some other questions that we've had from a lot of customers over the years. Then it kind of comes down to the bottom 2 here, and the bottom 2 are very important for different reasons. Number 1 is tell me why. And when you think a lot about what we do in terms of like math, the algorithms, the AI models, we just show you a number to our clients, right? But the reason is, or the first question is, why is the score high? Why is the risk high? And that's something that we absolutely address, and we're going to explain that later here. And the last one then is tell me what to do. So the score is 100. Well, what do I do with that? Or the score is 50. What do I need to do with that? And that automation component of it as well is a very important thing. So when you think about what we've done at Earth Solutions, we've taken these 5 predominant questions here. We've created one solution area with that, that has a few different offerings that roll up into one solution. So Smart Score is the place that provides customers with the configurable scores. And by the way, we'll go into each one of these more in detail here. But Smart Score does provide that configurable location where you can come in and modify your scores. Then we've got the damage risk analysis piece. That damage risk analysis piece, that is the thing that causes the most damages, or that tells you what caused the most damage to you and to your facilities and to your assets. So that's what DRA does. And then, of course, we've got the Insights AI. Insights AI really does predict what that likelihood, that impact is. And then with this single offering and solution comes the reasons, the scores of the scores, and then the actual automation that come out of that. So this package is for all of our damage prevention. You can get it for all of our damage prevention. And it is a single offering with 3 different answers for that. Now, one of the questions you may be asking is why are there kind of 3 different things here? And I'll explain. So not everyone is at the same level of maturity at the end of the day, right? So when you think about it, some customers actually capture a lot of damage data and have a lot of tickets. Some customers don't have that much damage data at all. Regardless of your maturity, we can help you out. So when you think about like Smart Score, if you have very minimal data, damage data, not even any damage data, you can still help predict risk on your tickets and see the risk on your tickets. And you do that using Smart Score plus Insights AI, which is our standard North American model. Both of those things can be turned on and configured immediately. And as soon as tickets roll in, you start getting scores, risk scores actually associated with the tickets. Next thing is, if you do have some data, then what we can do is also accompany and turn on DRA as well. So remember, Smart Score plus Insights AI plus DRA, or damage risk assessment. So if you've got about 3 months worth of data, of course, the more data you have, you'll hear me say a lot here, the better. But 3 months worth of damage data, we can start seeing what is really causing damage to you, and we can get that in the DRA model then to really start showing you the things that damage you, plus the configurability and still the prediction using Insights AI. Now, if you come to the far right-hand side here, really, if you have a year's worth of damage data is minimum. If you have really 3 years, or 3 years is ideal, but anywhere between 1 to 3 years, we can now take your damage data and build a custom model for you, an AI custom model for you with Insights here. That model then, with your damage data now, that model is specific to you, and actually the predictability of that model is extremely high. And Kyle's going to go into that and show you some of those things. So in that case, you would have Smart Score plus DRA plus an Insights AI custom model. And that right there runs the gamut of the predictability that you need, the configuration, being able to see what damages you directly, in the predictability of the actual incidents or likelihood of incidents, plus the actual impact as well, right? So regardless of maturity, there's a solution for you. So again, Etter Solutions, single offering across all damage prevention products, really with kind of broken up into multiple components that can be turned on or off depending on it. And the thing I'll point out that's the most important thing is that it produces a single score. You can have individual scores for each one, so you can see why or what this one predicts, but then there's an individual score, which is the most important thing across all of them here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get into more of each component, what each component actually does here. So starting off here, let's talk about Smart Score, because Smart Score is kind of that foundational backbone where the scores from the other places come into Smart Score, right? It kind of builds off that. So when you think about Smart Score, it is the configurable risk score. It's where you can say, if this, then score this at 100, right? The if-then statements. And where Smart Score is most utilized, and we see clients most utilize it, is location-based scores, right? At the very, very bare minimum. So for instance, if you have a high profile or a high consequence area here, you want to put a higher risk on that, you can do that based upon the facility location, right? And remember, one of the true things about this market is the distance from the actual dig to the facility is important. That distance can actually have some level of predictability if there's more of a likelihood to get hit, right, and cause an actual damage to it. So that's where that facility location information is very, very important as well, right? So if it's just doing that and sending out notifications after the fact using the actual location, that helps reduce damages in a massive way and reduce your risk in a massive way as well. Now, the other reason that a lot of clients use configurable risk scores, or location-based ones in particular, are there may be some brand new areas that they have that an AI model, we don't have enough historical data yet for an AI model to capture the risk of those areas. So let's say a new subdivision goes in, we did some micro trenching on some facilities here. They're also very close to the curb, right? We don't have any damage data for that yet, but that's a risky area for us. We know that's a risky area. So what we want to do is we want to take that subdivision and create a risk score for that subdivision. And we can even expand that out to any type of curb work or mailbox work that could create a higher risk then, right? And so these are the type of examples where Smart Score is heavily used. So it's heavily used in configuration, mostly around a lot of location information, as well. And then you can see also with Smart Score, the nice thing here is you can combine these different things. So keywords, for instance, you can look at anything on a ticket, boring activities, blasting activities, but really its AI model predicts those things out really in a nice way. Kyle's going to talk more. But keywords can be important as well because you can also reduce the risk. So if your company is the excavator on a ticket, that may decrease risk. So you can set up a rule that says, if my company is on a ticket, then decrease risk by 100. And that's where Smart Score is really used and very helpful. So along with those types of variables that you can configure, and it's really anything on a ticket you can configure, to increase or decrease risk. You can also change the risk score using Smart Score with other activities outside of tickets, other activities that correlate with tickets. So let me explain what those are here. Remember, the things that predict the most, the single thing that predicts the most likelihood of an incident occurring are damages. You've got damages over here. We look at tickets and we can say, oh, these are the variables that can predict damages. But there's also other correlations that increase the risk. So a great example of those correlations are things like locate audits or depth of cover. So if you think about those directly correlate to risk as well, especially on excavation activities. So we are the only product that does this now, where you can take a look at external activities outside of excavations and have the risk of an excavation modified. So let me give you an example here. Good example is locate audits. If you have locate audits that are constantly failed by a particular auditor, the system can look at those, Smart Score can look at those and actually increase the risk based upon failed audits. Another good example of that is depth of cover. So if you think about depth of cover here, if there's a depth of cover associated with that ticket and it is a very shallow depth of cover here, that can actually increase the risk as well. So those additional activities outside of just tickets that correlate with damages can increase the risk of tickets. And this is where Smart Score really excels. So these are the most common variables here that I'm walking you through now. Now, let's go into damage risk analysis, or what we call DRA for short, right? And really, what is DRA? Now, I want to explain this a little bit more here. When you think about DRA, it answers the question for you, what damages me, right? And when I say me, I'm talking about you guys, what damages you? So what we do is we take your ticket data, we take your damage data, your locators, your facility data, all of that data wrapped into one. We look at the analysis of it, right? And then we look at the historical performance. So a really easy way to put this from an algorithmic standpoint, right? I'm oversimplifying here because there's a lot more that goes into it. But it is a lot of ratios if you think about it, right? In that way. So if you think about, let's say you have an excavator who's damaged you 1 out of 10 tickets, that's a 10% damage ratio that can score that excavator at that rate, right? Now let's say that excavator, you get a damage today that goes in the system, and now there's 2 damages out of 10. That's a 20% damage rate now. Any ticket that comes in with that excavator on the ticket will automatically increase the risk score because that excavator has damaged you twice. Now what happens is, now there's 10 more tickets that come in with that excavator, so it goes from 2 damages out of 10 to 2 damages out of 20. That risk score goes from 20% down to 10% now in terms of the ratio, which actually decreases the risk. So what DRA does is DRA learns over time as tickets come into the system, as your damages come in the system from the other side here. DRA looks at that variable, those variables, runs algorithms on them to learn over time to say, yep, the risk of this thing has gone up or the risk of this thing has gone down. And this is where DRA really excels, because it's looking at the things that cause damage to you specifically, to your company. So, and when you think about that here, right, there's insights in that. And let me explain what the insights are. If you look at like the orange things on the actual chart here, the different variables, it's looking at all these different variables. The things that were dangerous to you last week may not be dangerous to you this week, right? There may just have been a bad day that some excavator had, and they don't have very many tickets, right? They only had 1 out of 100 tickets, and they damaged you on that 1 out of 100 tickets. But it was just that single person on that single excavation truck, right? But as they go on over time, that excavator is actually a very good excavator, very safe practices. They don't damage you ever again. So their score will decrease heavily, and that's an insight here. It's not going to be the same likelihood of damage from that excavator, whereas others may get worse over time again and drive that score up. The same thing applies with locators as well. Locators failing audits, locators painting the dirt in the wrong location, right? Those insights and those things will change over time and kind of flux as they get better or worse in terms of what they do. Same thing with facilities. You may have facilities in areas that are just very accident prone areas, a lot of seismic events, a lot of different dirt movements, right? Mudslides, things like that. Those facilities can be more likely to damage. And basically the variables, due to the variables changing over time and the algorithm learning here, that's where you get different insights and the variables change here. So the three most impactful variables that we found with DRA, it's very simple. It's what you know, right? It's the things that we're all aware of here. What excavators have caused the most damages, what facilities have the most damage, and what locators are most at fault here for damages. Those 3 things have a very high predictability for the things that damage you directly, because they're the ones actually doing the work. And again, the facility is located in some particular area. So you can see here, if you take Smart Score here is the baseline. You can configure your scores in there for areas that are high to you. You can now look at distance to facilities as well, right? When you do that and now combine that with DRA, which is this learning model here, you get a lot of growth in terms of predicting your risk and being able to mitigate risk before they happen. Okay. So now what we're going to do, and I'm going to take a real quick break here before Kyle goes here. One housekeeping thing. You will not be able to speak, directly into the mic where we can hear you, right? So we won't be able to hear you. So if you have questions, throw them in the Q&A section. It's at the very top bar of Zoom. So go ahead and throw your questions in there as you have them, and we'll answer them at the very end of the actual webinar session here. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to give controls to Kyle now, and then we're going to let Kyle go off and speak. So Kyle, feel free to take over from here.
Thank you, Matt. Can you hear me all right, Matt?
Yep, we can hear great.
All right, perfect. Yes, thank you for that. And what I'm going to cover here a little bit is how we use AI and machine learning to fit into this overall picture of risk. And as Matt mentioned, Smart Score is kind of the vehicle for all of these factors that come into play. And what you're going to see is with AI, we have a few different predictions that we make. And those can be fed into Smart Score to either be looked at individually as individual AI scores or combined into other scores as well to consider things like proximity to existing infrastructure, things like that. So um, with that said, I just want to give a little bit of an overview, a little bit of history of AI here at Earth. So we do a few things here at Earth. Obviously we want to predict incidents. That's the name of our industry. That's the name of the game. It's the holy grail of what we do is making sure people are safe, whether they're an excavator or a member of the public, and then saving, costs, keeping the lights on, keeping the internet on, keeping the gas flowing, all of that good stuff. So that's one of the things we do. And we make predictions highly accessible and easy to obtain. That's really, really critical because what we have here is something that's really great, and we don't want people to be unable to use it, right? We want anybody who can benefit from this to be able to use it. And so we make these predictions that we do with AI very accessible and easy. Um, Matt touched on this a bit already. We explain predictions in a way that's easy to understand. And we're pouring quite a bit of resources into improving this as well currently. And so you don't just get a number, you get an explanation on why that number is what it is. Um, Similar, we provide interpretability and transparency. Again, it's not a black box. You get to see inside the box a little bit there to see why the prediction is what it is. And finally, we support all of this via a team of skilled data scientists, analysts, engineers with a lot of experience in AI and also a lot of experience in our industry. So a little look at there's two main factors that are going to provide the best AI and ML products and predictions that you could possibly get. The first is data, and it's quality over quantity, right? And you'll hear me say this quite a bit. I'd rather have no data than bad data. And so what we have here at Earth is a lot of really, really great data. We have damage prevention data from Digtix and Utilisphere. We have call center data from Exactix. We have training and competency data from our training platform, our learning management solution. We have slope, fire, and seismic data from our partners at Boston Geospatial, and similarly, data for weather and methane from IBM. Lastly, we have right-of-way data from our Earth Land Management product. And so again, quality and quantity here is part one of two. The second part is, and I mentioned this earlier, it's expertise. How do you use that data to train these models to make the best predictions possible? And that's broken up into two pieces. You need to have really, really great data scientists, analysts, and engineers to look at that data, the huge amounts of data that you have. You also need to have subject matter expertise. So those data professionals need to understand our world, right, at damage prevention, our niche little world here. And so it's important that you have experience on both sides of the fence when it comes to that. And so in 2019, we've been doing this now for over 5 years. It's been over half a decade since we started our data science initiatives. That was started prior to the acquisition of 4IQ Solutions by Irth. We initially launched DigSites, the version 0.9 in 2020. We then launched version 1.0 in 2021, and then we were acquired by Irth in 2022. And in Q4 of last year, we launched version 1.1 of Insights. That included impact scores and risk factors. And then in just a couple weeks ago, we launched version 1.2, which has a significant, version 1.2 is our ML pipeline that provides retraining on a daily basis. And I'll get into that in a little bit. So our approach, what we do, why we do it, and how we do it. This chart that you see on this slide is a risk model. It's actually the leading risk model that a lot of companies and organizations and people use. It breaks down risk into two factors: the likelihood of an adverse event occurring and the impact or consequence. If an adverse event does occur, what level of consequence are we looking at? Is it negligible, or are we, is it very severe? This is the status quo of risk models at a high level. This is used by NASA, the US Department of Defense, and many others. Now, what we do is with our AI models, we have broken up our predictions into these two factors. So we have for each excavation or locate request that's submitted to the models, we provide a likelihood score and an impact score. And this is provided also by a complete machine learning pipeline, one that learns constantly, right? We don't, as incidents occur, those incidents are then considered within our models, and the predictions that you receive shortly after that incident occurs is considered. So it's constantly learning. We have national and targeted models, and this is important because we have a national model that you can submit any ticket from just about any call center to, and then we found out that not everywhere is the same. There are certain regions and certain areas that it's a little bit different. So the predictions that you make in, say, New England of the United States are not as performant as something that predictions that you would make in the Southwest United States. One of the main drivers of that is climate and seasonality. There are other drivers as well, but what it amounts to is that we actually have some models that are targeted to specific areas because the game is different in those areas. And so we have these regional models. And finally, we also look at delivering bespoke models as well. Bespoke just meaning we can take a data set that's specific to you or your organization and train a model on that, and then provide predictions based on that model. And that's the third step in the maturity model that Matt demonstrated earlier. When you have enough data, at least a year, ideally more than a year, but a year is pretty good, we can start looking at training models which are specific to your organization with very good results. The next thing I want to talk about is delivery. As I mentioned before, we want to make this as easy and accessible as we possibly can. So a couple points here. We're hosted on a highly available and scalable serverless architecture. What that means is you can throw as many requests at our API as you possibly can imagine, and it's not gonna, everything's gonna be working just fine. It is optimized for performance. So you get these predictions not in hours, not in minutes. Our average response time is about 2 seconds. And when you're submitting a ticket for predictions, it couldn't be more easier in that all you need is the raw locate request, meaning the locate request that the call center spits out. You take that locate request, submit it to the API, and you get the predictions. You don't need to submit any GIS data. You don't need to submit any other data other than that raw locate request from the call center. Now, that said, we do have native integrations for Utilisphere and Digtix. So both of those products have the ability to query this API and get these predictions from our machine learning models. Now, that said, you don't have to be an Earth customer to use Insights AI. Anybody can query these predictions, whether you're an excavator, a call center, obviously a utility operator, contract locator, or anybody else who's interested in knowing, given this excavation, what is the likelihood of an incident occurring and what's the impact going to be if one does occur? So the takeaway again from this is it's fast, it's easy to integrate, it's scalable, and it's effective. Now, in analyzing, I want to just take a step back just for a second. Um, Artificial intelligence and machine learning and the way we typically deploy it is basically just really advanced math. We take a ton of data, analyze it every which way, and there's a lot of statistical and probabilistic outputs that come out of it. What these are insights. It allows us to know, based on past events, what can we expect in the future. And it's not just qualitative, it's quantitative as well. So not only can we say this is more risky, we can say this is 37.57% more risky, or something along those lines. So I want to show you a couple of we've uncovered tens of thousands of insights during our machine learning process, but I want to share with you a few that I think are pretty interesting. And the way I'd like to do it is to propose we do a little bit of trivia, a little bit of Q&A with our audience here. So what I'd like to request you to do is there's 4 questions that I'm about to ask you. After each question, put your answer in the chat for in the Zoom call. I don't know if you'll be able to see the chats of other attendees, but I know that we as presenters will be able to see them. So again, as I ask these questions, I'm going to ask you to put your answer in the chat here. So let's get started with question number 1. We'll start off something pretty easy, I think. Directional boring. This question applies to all of North America. So we're talking about the US and Canada, essentially. In the US and Canada, do locate requests that indicate directional boring have a higher or lower chance of resulting in an incident? So either put higher or lower as your answer in the chat based on, does directional boring have a higher or lower chance of resulting in an incident? I'll give everyone about 10, 15 seconds because this one's pretty easy. Answer, a higher chance. Probably not too surprising. I think a lot of people already had that just based on working in our industry for a little amount of time. You could probably figure that out. It's a pretty common hunch, right? So qualitatively, we know it's a higher chance. But my next question, I have a follow-up. How much more likely is an incident? And you don't need to type in that answer. If anybody gets that right, I'm going to be pretty impressed. Locate requests that indicate directional boring are 61.73% more likely to result in an incident than locate requests which don't include directional boring. And you can see here on the slide here, we have the percentages based on all of the data that we've used in our North America model. All right, that one was easy. Let's maybe do something that's a little more difficult. Breaking ground by month in Florida. So in Florida, in the state of Florida alone, locate requests which are scheduled to begin digging in what month are the most likely to result in an incident. So if you're guessing, you have a 1 in 12 chance, about 8.7% chance of getting this correct. I'll give everyone just a few seconds here. What month in Florida results in the most incidents? Answer, January. And you can see here the breakdown of each month from what we found in our insights. January is pretty high up there, and it's generally a trend downward from there. You can see, some of the lowest, some of the safest months, if you will, when it comes to digging are towards the end of the year in Q4. All right, here's another one that I would say is a little more difficult. Breaking ground by day of week in Texas. So in the state of Texas, locate requests which are scheduled to begin digging on what day of the week are the most likely to result in an incident. Give everyone just a few seconds. You got a 1 in 7 chance if you're just guessing. Answer here is Sunday. And it's not even close. We have it's more than double the chance of an incident occurring on Sunday than any other date. Saturday is second place, and then Thursday's third, and everybody else is pretty even. All right, final question. White lining, also known as pre-marking. So this is we're coming back to all of North America now. In the US and Canada, do locate requests that indicate pre-excavation white lining have a higher or lower chance of resulting in an incident? So it might be a little easy. I think this is pretty, pretty common thing to deal with is it white lined or not, right? So you have a 50-50 shot if you're just guessing on this. Last few answers. All right, the answer is a higher chance. That's a little bit maybe surprising. So if a locate request is white lined, there's actually a higher chance of an incident occurring. I know a couple years ago before we started this, I thought it made the excavations more safe or less likely to result in an incident. And if we look here, locate requests that indicate white lining are 89.76% more likely to result in an incident than locate requests which are not white lined. Now I want to take a step back here and say, I want to say there's a notion of causality and correlation, right? So correlation does not imply causation. We all have heard this. What I think is going on here, it's not that white lining introduces more risk to the excavation. Instead, we believe that there's a correlation that only more complex jobs are white lined. And therefore, you have these complex jobs which generally lead to more incidents. When you have these homeowners that call in very simple, jobs, they never, homeowners almost never white line. And those are the more simple jobs, and those typically don't result in as many incidents, right? Just as one example. So this is a little counterintuitive. It's one of the surprising insights that we found in all of our data analysis is white lining actually, incidents occur more regularly on tickets which are white lined. So once again, we have tens of thousands of these insights, and all of these insights are used in real time to provide predictions when you submit a locate request to our AI models. So how did you do? If anybody got all 4 correct, can you give us a thumbs up in the chat? So the takeaway here is we use mountains of data and a team of professionals to uncover unlikely and surprising, sometimes, associations to help make informed decisions. So we put all of this effort into, into developing these machine learning pipelines and these models. And so what kind of performance are we looking at here through all of this? So what we did was we actually ran a pilot we ran a pilot with a Midwest gas and electric company, and they piloted both us and they also piloted a competitor as well. But what's important to know here is that during the pilot, no intervention was performed. And when I say intervention, I mean it could be going out to do a watch and protect, or it could be just sending out an email that says, hey, this has been identified as a high risk ticket. Here's why. Please be careful, right? So all of these things, the intervention, the methods of intervention, there's a broad spectrum here. It could be something that's very cheap and automated, or something that's a little more involved, like sending somebody out to do an audit or or a watch and protect. So during this pilot, they performed no intervention. So and that's important because as soon as you do intervention, you change the result of the excavation, hopefully. If you intervene on a high risk ticket, maybe that would have resulted in an incident, but because you intervened, it didn't. And so by not having any intervention during this pilot, we were able to really see what kind of performance our predictions had. So here's this performance chart. What this is called is a cumulative gains curve, and I'm going to explain it a little bit to you. So what we're looking at here is it's a chart, x-axis, y-axis. Along the x-axis, I want you to imagine that you've taken all of the tickets that you have received, in maybe last year. You submitted all your tickets to an AI model, got back a score, a numeric score, and then you take that score and you sort your tickets from the highest score to the lowest score. And the tickets with the highest scores are on the left-hand side of the chart. So here at the 0% on the x-axis, that's your highest scored ticket. And then your second highest scored ticket, your third highest scored, your fourth, fifth, sixth, and so on, all the way to the right hand of the chart where your lowest scored tickets are. And then for each one of your tickets, you ask yourself, did this ticket result in an incident? And if it did, then the y-axis increases. So each little increase in the trend lines that you're seeing here are actually an incident that occurred. Now on the chart, there's 3 lines. There's a gray line. The gray line means no prediction occurred at all. In other words, you just treated everything the same. Statistically, this makes sense. If you take half of your locate requests and you come up along the x-axis here at the 50%, half of your incidents are going to occur in half of your locate requests if you take it, 50% of your tickets at random. Similarly, if you take 10% of your locate requests at random, 10% of your incidents should occur in those at random. The blue line is what can be achieved with Earth AI Insights predictions. So what this means is what we want to see here on this cumulative gains curve is a very steep start, like we see here on this chart. That means that we are predicting incidents in the highest scored tickets. That's what that means. So let's take a quick look at, some of these results here. So Earth AI Insights isolated half of all of the incidents that occurred in 13.85% locate requests. So what that means here is if I draw this blue line from the x-axis up until I hit the blue trend line, that's how many incidents I was able to predict in those locate requests. So here we're just under 14% on the x-axis, and we are at 50% on the incident axis. So again, half of your incidents occurring in less than 14% of your locate requests. The competitor that also was running the pilot, they had to, they predicted half of all of the incidents that occurred in 23.5% of locate requests. And a little bit more information about this pilot. We scored roughly 100,000 locate requests in this pilot. It was, I think, at like 96,000 something, but let's, for round numbers, we'll just call it 100,000. Within those 100,000 locate requests, about 100 incidents occurred. Now, what that means is if you were to intervene on a little less than 14,000 tickets, you could potentially reduce your incident rate by 50%. And again, intervention doesn't necessarily mean send someone out on site to do additional work. It could mean automations. It could mean outreach. It could just mean strategically assigning these jobs to seasoned locators or seasoned professionals. Whereas the less risky tickets, you would assign to someone more green, someone who isn't as experienced. So let's look at the flip side. We know high risk tickets we can predict very well. What about low risk tickets? So Earth AI isolated 5% of the incidents that occurred in about 1/3 of the locate requests. So what that means here is if I draw this red line across 95% and look at where it intersects the trend lines and draw this line down to the x-axis, you can see in about 1/3 of locate requests, only 5% of my incidents occurred. So this could be used for assigning to new trainees. It could be used for clearing strategies, outsourcing strategies, other strategies as well. But suffice to say, we are just as good at predicting high likelihood of an incident as we are a low likelihood of an incident. The competitor, on the other hand, they predicted 5% of incidents in almost 80% of the locate requests. Now, overall comparison, the area in green is the difference between the predictive performance of these two models. And we're happy to present that our predictions were 28%, more than 28% better. That's a huge number. We're not talking 1 or 2%. A lot of times when it comes to AI and ML, you have people will chase 1 or 2% in better predictability. As an example, if you're trading stocks and you were able to pick stocks a few percent better, you would take that. You would want that. It would make you a lot more money. But we're not talking about a few percent here. We're talking about 28%, a huge number when it comes to predictive capabilities and performance. So real quick, I do want to make sure we have enough time for Q&A. The last thing I'll say about AI before passing it back over to Matt, we do have some really exciting things coming down the pipe. Our next release, which is version 1.3, will include even better predictions. Our predictions are getting 13 to 15% better in this next release. We're going to be looking at using generative AI and large language models to do risk assessment in natural language. We'll also be able to provide some more of these insights and analytics through interactive dashboards. And we're also going to lead into prescriptive insights, because once you know why something is high risk, that leads into what should I do about it? And what prescriptive insights is a lot of times what we've been talking about so far is predictive insights. So I'm going to predict that this event's going to happen. But we can do better than that. It's not just, hey, this is what we predict. This is what we predict, and this is how we recommend dealing with that prediction. So when you go to the doctor, they don't just say, hey, you have an infection, see you later. They say, you have an infection, you need to drink a lot of water, you need to take these pills, you need to, rest, sleep, things like that. This is how you're going to get better. So it prescribes you a method to mitigate that risk. One thing that I forgot to mention is in our most recent release, version 1.2, we are now retraining our models every single day. So that's something that just came out. So all of our models, what that means is if an incident occurs today, by the time you come into work tomorrow, our models will have learned from that incident. And those predictions that you're getting tomorrow will consider any of the incidents that occurred today. So that's a very, very big deliverable for us. And we're really excited about it because what that does is it prevents what we call drift. Drift is the systematic degradation of predictive models over time. For example, you wouldn't want to use a predictive model from 5 years ago to make predictions about tomorrow. You want to use a predictive model that was trained recently, within the last year, maybe, year or quarter to make those predictions. Well, now we have models that are trained every single day to provide you with the best predictions possible based on the most recent events. And that's really important. So I'm going to give it back over to Matt to close out a couple remaining topics. So thanks, Matt.
Great, thank you, Kyle. Yeah, and so when you think about what we talked about at the very beginning here, really kind of answering the questions that our customers have for us in terms of the configurability, what damages you, the predictability, right? That's all in there. The next phase of this really is the reasons and the automation. So let me kind of explain that here, because if, like Kyle said before, if you do no intervention, nothing's going to change, right? You're going to have the same outcome at the end of the day. You're still going to have the same damages. So the intervention is important. And it's very difficult for you clients to do a manual intervention. If you have to pick up the phone, if we find 10,000 high risky tickets, you have to pick up the phone 10,000 times. That's a very manual process that has a high cost to it, right? So what we do instead is we do automation, and those automation can be in many different forms, and I'm showing you a few. And again, this goes across the product lines at our solution. So ticket is received, number one, right? The ticket is then scored almost in real time. It is the fastest score in the industry. And remember, what we do is we take those three different solutions, combine into a single offering, and there's a single score on those that can run everything, the predictability and everything, right? As soon as those tickets are scored, then the system is set up and configured with many different automation or automated actions that take place. Those can be as simple as a notification gets sent out, like an email, both internally and externally. You can change who is actually assigned to the actual ticket, right? Maybe you want a more senior locator assigned to the ticket. But if it's a ticket with a very low risk, very impact, maybe that goes out to a contract locator to work. You can actually also create follow-up activities automatically. So what that means is that if it is very high risk with a very high impact, more likely you'll want to intervene by talking to that person. Instead of picking up the phone, you can have the system send out a phone call automatically. And when they do the phone call automatically, it can also create a follow-up activity like a watch and protect, a field meet, or a standby, some type of activity like that, to then schedule you to go on site to talk to the excavator to make sure that your facilities are not damaged, right? So these are just a few of the things in terms of automation that we do, as well here. Now, also, when you think about the risk matrix here, this is where the different activities come into play. Really, you shouldn't do the same thing for everything. You're not going to send out, if you have a million tickets, we score a million tickets, you're not going to send out a million notifications and all the low ones saying, hey, there's a low risk here, go ahead and dig. You're not going to do that. But what you're going to do is you're going to have different really actions based upon where they fall in the risk matrix. So first off, start bottom left. The things that are very unlikely to happen and where the impact is very minimal, that's your accept. You can screen those tickets out because it's a very low risk, very low impact. Like Kyle showed, there is some minor chance of some impact, events happening, but it's not big at that particular point across your tickets that are not high impact, not high likelihood. But conversely, the upper right-hand side, the ones to avoid here, if it's a high likelihood, a high impact, that's where you're going to have automation kick into play, where you're probably going to go on site and do a site visit or watch and protect, have that conversation. The ones in the mitigate category here, those are where there's a high likelihood of damage. So the damage is high, not real big impact though, but you still do want some type of intervention. That could be training, QA, ambassador programs. That could be reassigning, a resource here to them, someone more senior, right? Just to make sure that it's a more senior locator on site, and that's where you can really mitigate that risk. So this is what's going to be driving our prescriptive model here. Now, the next thing here, and I'll let Kyle talk about this. This is what leading companies are doing to better mitigate that risk. And here's some actual examples here. So, Kyle, go ahead and take this over here.
Yeah, sure. And the reason we included this is really so we can provide a few creative examples of intervention. I think when people hear intervention, they immediately go to audit or watch and protect, and those are really effective methods of intervention, but they come at high cost. And so a couple things that um, uh, ideas that have been implemented and have been found very effective are listed here. Pre and post blasting leak surveys. If an excavation involves blasting, you do a leak survey along with the locate request, and then you return after the excavation is done to do a post leak survey. And we have some statistics here some real world statistics here highlighted. Another is gas transmission monitoring. This is a watch and protect. This is where anything that's within a certain proximity of a transmission line, you want to go and protect. The last one I really like because we've seen a lot of results in a very cost-effective intervention strategy, which is high pressure coupler notifications. And so if there's an excavation going on around certain pieces of equipment or certain high consequence areas, simply email the excavator with some helpful information. Let them know, put them on notice to say, hey, this is something that you want to be extra careful on. And you see here, we've sent out over 26,000 notifications. It even has like an image of a high pressure coupler and what it looks like so they know what it is if they come across it, have been distributed to excavators automatically. And out of those 26,000 locate requests, no incidents have occurred. So again, that's a really great example of a low cost intervention strategy.
Yeah. And one thing I want to point out with Kyle, and that's a very simplistic thing, but even adding a picture of what something looks like. Don't assume that excavators know everything about your facilities, but even just a picture inside of a communication out, an email out, helps them and helps reduce that potential damage. So there's even many different things that you can do along that side here. Now, on to benefits here, and this is really the last one. So obviously, what we're trying to do is really, or what we are doing is proactively identifying those risks, right? Then we're predicting what that risk looks like. So, really at the end of the day, the reason we're doing this are to reduce the damages, right? When you can see your risk, when you can add configuration, the things that are damaging you, when you have a predictive model here, and then you have automation on top of it where that intervention takes place, that's where you see a true decrease in risk. And by the way, not only that, but then you can come back and measure the risk after the fact to say how many damages we have last year versus this year, right? And then that same system still learns the changes as time goes on, right? So your risk change over time, and our offering changes with you here, right, over time here. So that's it for the presentation piece. What I'm going to do is there's a Q&A. If you have any questions, please put this in the Q&A. And we've already got a few questions, so I'm going to come in here and read. So first question off the bat is this only for Utilista or will Dictix have this? Both systems have this in different flavors, right? So both have this capability in different flavors. And we can explain more to you as well if you call in. We can give you more background here. Second question, we already have a risk model in Utilista that was manually built off the parameters within a ticket text. Will native AI be available for current users? The answer is absolutely. So it is absolutely available for users today, right? You just need to call us and we can actually turn on the actual native AI. We call it the North American model, but it is our native model here. We can also work with you on like how much damages you have to see like, if there's a potential use for DRA and or a custom model for you as well. All right, I'm going through the questions here. One question is, are you going to show this actually in action, or is it just a high level overview? Today was a high level overview, but we've got a ton of demonstrations that we can show you and demos we can show you. Reach out to us, and we can give you exact demonstrations of what we talked about today inside of the product, showing you in the product with the different scores combining into a single score. So definitely do that if there's interest there in seeing that. Okay, so question here. I can clearly see how Smart Score / AI at Earth is impactful for distribution assets. What parts of this feature are beneficial to transmission assets with lower ticket volumes that do not typically ever see damages? So it's the same premise there, right? And I would just change, if you change a term, it makes sense. Damages versus an incidence versus near damages, right? So or near misses. So really, we could take a look at the near misses that you have here, and those are the same type of models and the same type of different, well, the variables specific to your near misses go into play to make sure that those near misses don't stay near misses. They actually don't even show up the following year here. So we can actually use a combination of things for those that actually do help with the near misses. If you want a transmission pipeline, the other thing I will say is that even notifications out, especially on high consequence areas, help mitigate and deter those near misses as well. Believe it or not, we've seen it 1,000 times with customers that are transmission notification on an excavator saying, "Hey, this is a high consequence area. If you hit this, there will be an explosion." Right? They will be extremely cautious then at digging around that area. So a lot of the actions still pertain to transmission pipeline companies. The data in variables may just be a little bit different, but we work with you on what we should configure for transmission. Kyle, did you have anything to add on specific to transmission companies as well?
No, I think you hit it pretty well. It really comes down to your definition of incident. So if you consider a near miss an incident, then we can predict those. And if you only consider an incident an actual damage, then we would predict those.
Yep, great. All right, Kyle, stay off of mute here because there's another one really for you here. This question was asked during the white line, when we showed the white lined statistics here. Does that mean really white lined, or the excavator said it is white lined on the ticket? It's fair
Great,
point. Yeah.
great question. And so our all of our models are trained around the raw locate request as well as other data that we have within our organization. So the short answer is it's that the excavator said it is white lined on a ticket. So if the excavator says it's white lined on the ticket and it's reflected on the ticket, then that's high. That's what that insight that we went through on the trivia was based on.
Yep, very good. All right, next question, and I love this question as well because this is where we're going. This is the future of where we're going. Do you have any statistics based on the type of intervention? So when you think about that, the answer is yes, we do, and that's what's going to help us build out the prescriptive model as well. So Kyle, do you want to go deeper in that at all?
Yeah, a little bit. This gets a little difficult because once you intervene, then you don't really know if you didn't intervene, would an incident have occurred? Now, that said, there are some things that we can do, and we're really excited to do them around prescriptive insights and saying, hey, out of all of the tickets that were high risk and that we intervene this way, that's how these tickets perform in terms of incident rate. And so we can then kind of grade and judge that a little bit that way. So that's something that's coming.
Yep, it is. Yep. You guys, this is a great group of questions here. I love these next questions here. What value do you think these kinds of services have for excavators, especially with regard to training, risk assessment, and mitigation and the like? So I love that question. So one of the things that we did not talk about though, are really more into the interventions. And Kyle, what's interesting? We should probably we could just do a webinar on just interventions alone. But if you think about the interventions, one of them can be sending to excavators, not just a communication about the risk, but also training, like a URL or a link to additional training topics that they can then hit on and walk through specific training. It can be specific to that company or more industry standard training as well. And that's really what we're trying to get to. We have embedded our own training product inside of our own platforms here, inside DigTix and Utilisphere and all of our platforms as well. There are definitely industry leaders who are adopting some training, like CGA is doing that. And that the URLs for that content can be included in the risk messages to really mitigate that then and help the excavator walk through. Kyle,
If,
comment on
if
that?
I can, yeah, if I could expand on that just a little bit. The person, Sam, who asked that, I think just in case you're asking it from this lens, why would an excavator be interested in receiving predictions from us, right? Um, there's a few reasons. Well, the one that comes to mind is uh, risk factors. To be able to understand, hey, this is risky because you are doing directional boring on, a Monday or at this time during the day or in this specific neighborhood, right? Um, for example, if it might recommend that, hey, instead of doing this on a Monday, do this on a Tuesday. That's maybe a silly example, but those risk factors are what really they would be interested in, is understanding why it's risky. So that way it leads into that prescriptive insight where maybe if you just change a few things about how you're doing that work,
Yep.
then it would become less risky. Or there are certain aspects about that work that you want one of your subject matter experts to be on site for example, like
That's
transmission
good.
lines or mechanical couplers or things like that.
That's good. So what we're going to do, we still have several questions. I want to make sure we answer them all. I'm going to go into kind of a speed round here, and we'll answer them kind of quickly. So next question, how do we know if we're utilizing SmartScore in the most current predictive model with our company internal inspections and damage data? Reach out to us. We can actually walk you through that. We can look at the setup of your particular company and see what you're using, what you're not using, and we can help you get that implemented and set up here. Next question. We have issues getting detailed location information from tickets to score correctly based on the facilities in the area. We typically don't know the details until we are located. Any thoughts on improvement? Absolutely. So when you say detailed information, detailed location information, that could be on the actual one call ticket itself. And then that could also be the facilities in your area, which are the facilities that you're actually doing the locating work for. That's really a conversation with you because we can really parse out some of the location data on the tickets to make decisions, and AI can already doing that in many cases here. The other thing specific to your facility locations, the facilities you're marking, we could talk, look at your GIS data, right? It doesn't even have to be GIS data. We can look at areas as well. If you don't have really good GIS data, we can look at more cities or even county levels to kind of predict risk along that. There's definitely things we can there. So reach out to us on that piece. Next question. We are interested in the scoring of locate tickets. How is this information listed in Utilisphere? Is the AI system able to understand different types of work activities in different locations to produce the score? So in Utilisphere specifically, when you think about it, it's shown in a few different ways. Number one, on the summary screen, there are scores on the summary screen. You can choose what you want to display on the summary screens, right? Every score has a reason behind it. So when you click on it, it tells you the reasons a score. And then those can drive different activities as well. So reach out to us so we can actually walk you through, what that looks like. Very last question here. Can this AI data be used to auto-assign tickets to specific senior locators? Likewise, could this data be used to assign to lower priority locates? The answer is yes, and that's where SmartScore comes in. So the AI model, DRA, SmartScore, all score tickets within SmartScore. Any SmartScore that is set up can be used for notifications or assigned to locators and or assigned to areas, folders. So you can come in and based upon the risk score, you can say, oh, I want to assign it to this group of locators or these locators that are more senior, but scores that are lower get assigned to more junior locators. So that is absolutely an intervention that you can set up now, an automation you can set up now. That's no issue at all here. So we are great feedback from everyone, great participation. We really appreciate everyone's time today. If you have any questions, reach out to us here. We'd love to talk to you more about it. This is one of our favorite topics here, and we love presenting on these things. So really appreciate everyone's time today. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you here. Thanks. We'll
Thanks,
see you.
everyone. Have a good day.